Welcome to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast, where we talk all things Panther City Lacrosse Club. Now here are your hosts, Nicholas and Andy.
Well, Panther City came into the weekend with 2 games on tap against the San Diego Seals and the Rochester Nighthawks. Welcome everyone to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast. I'm Nicholas, of course, joined by Andy.
Hello.
Andy, Panther City had a good string of back and forth games, and they had a great chance going into this weekend with 2 games on the tap to kind of keep that winning ways going and get ahead in the standings. But San Diego and Rochester were, San Diego's a tough team every year, and then Rochester, they've had their ups and downs this year, so it was kind of a good test for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Going into the weekend with a record above 500 for what felt like the first time since the beginning of the year, we really wanted to take advantage of. Obviously, San Diego is one of the elite teams in the league, and Rochester, even though the record might not show it, they were pretty tough out as well. So, it was a great opportunity for Panther City to show what they were made of. We'll go into how that went.
Right. And before we get too far, I do want to state we are going to go through both games, kind of a more condensed rundown of each game, our thoughts per quarter and overall and stuff like that. But I just wanted to make sure we had enough time to kind of cover both games. So going into the game Friday night against San Diego, for a pregame, I did put down it was college night. So it was a good, younger 20s, late teens kind of group there. Seems like a little bit more active crowd, I would say, coming into this game. But San Diego was coming into this game off of a very close, it was a win, a very close overtime game against Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they won on the Westberg goal. Yeah, was it the same weekend that we played them? I don't remember if there was
that was the turnaround, yeah.
Gotcha. So yeah, and we had beaten Georgia previously on Showtime's Sleeping Bulletin in Town Crawford. So a little bit of backstory. We have only beaten San Diego once in the 3-year history of Panther City. That was during the inaugural season. Since then, last year we did not beat them a single time. I think we played 2 times, and Liam Patton and Austin Stotts did get into it early on in either the first or second game, if I'm not mistaken. You've got 2 great goalies, Nick Damute, who's growing game by game, and Chris Origlieri. They have the confidence in him as a great young goalie in this league, really promising, to where they actually traded their veteran Ciliano and let him leave. So, and not only that, but they were able to pick up face-off extraordinaire specialist Trevor Baptiste in the offseason. He played for Philly last year. He did pretty well against Panther City playing for them, but Philly wasn't one of the stronger teams overall. But so the fact that an already elite San Diego team added a guy like Baptiste, gave Origlieri the full reins to play in net. Panther City definitely had their work cut out for them.
Well, yeah, you just pointed out between Baptiste, Stotts. Yes. I mean, you're talking about like some really elite players playing on one team, and so coming in, it was definitely a hard test for Panther City to take advantage of. But early on, I mean, it just seemed like we were very aggressive. We were trying to push the ball a little more. We actually had an early 3-on-1 breakaway where it didn't lead to a goal, but it was a good just view into Panther City's game plan on trying to take advantage of every opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one thing Coach TK has been stressing. The transition game was so critical to us last year. Even if not leading to goals, then at least keeping the pressure on the defense, especially with a goalie like Origlieri.
Yeah, and you between Origlieri getting some great blocks early on, I mean, even Damute, you talked about him. He got awesome blocks, especially that first half of the first quarter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Both goalies and both sets of defenses were doing really well, and it was nice to see, considering last season San Diego certainly came across as like a big brother to Panther City of, okay, that's the team whose level we're trying to get to. And early on, for pretty much most of this game, that was how Panther City was playing that okay, we belong with the big boys in San Diego.
Oh yeah. And early on, I mean, Knox got a great goal, put us up 1-0, but then after the TV timeout, it just goes to show you how good of a team San Diego is. They put together a great offensive plan. They score, or they answer back right after that TV timeout. So it was 1-1, and it just seemed like both teams were, physical, good back and forth. Now, tied 1-1 led to one of the craziest goals I've seen all year, and I'm sure you saw it too. But so Crawford is crossing on the left side, and he decides to pass back, and it looked like he was passing to either Donville or Caputo, but it literally bounces off of them, lands into Malcolm's stick, and he's just like, okay. And he goes and scores, and I'm just like, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was almost like a little pinball shot of like, you don't know where it's going to end up, but sometimes good things happen. So Malcolm able to get that ricochet and the doink for the quick strike on San Diego to give us the early lead back was pretty nice.
I mean, yeah, it was good to see all of them getting involved early. And so at that point, we were up 2-1. I did put down, finally, your boy, Medeiros, man. He finally got a breakaway, took a shot. It didn't go in, but, I mean, finally an attempt at least.
Yeah. I like the aggression. Certainly he's got to get the monkey off his back this season at some point after leading the league in transition goals last year.
Yeah, it was just, I was glad to see him a little bit more involved, but, up 2-1 going into the second quarter. Again, offense, it just seemed like the Coach TK had a plan of we need to be as aggressive as they are, if not more aggressive. And both teams were kind of getting at each other for sure in that first quarter and into the second quarter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first one started off pretty aggressive, but second one, it was crazy to see it kick up another notch. I know it started, Baptiste, surprise, won another face-off. One note, Ronan Puech was a scratch in this game, so we kind of went face-off by committee like we have whenever Puech is on the bench, and I think Brandon Goodwin took the majority of them. But anyway, he got that face-off, and you can see how integral that is to San Diego's offense, because it allows Baptiste and the rest of the guys to get early opportunities even before the offense really sets up. Thankfully, Damied was able to get a pretty good stop right off the bat. And so just, the aggression and physicality on both sides was really prevalent early on.
Yeah, but it was good to see, not only our defense kind of holding them in check, quote unquote, for the most part, but also just seeing our offense, kind of clicking together. I mean, we get Crawford, or Caputo gets a great rebound goal. And then Crawford had 2 in this quarter, which, it just made us feel like, hey, again, like you said, we kind of belong against this team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there was great shot diversity in terms of sometimes it was right place at the right time with like Will Malcolm. Caputo's goal, we didn't mention it, but he had a dunk called back in the first quarter, but in the second, it was nice to see him basically get those points back off of. I think San Diego, they thought they had the loose ball and kind of whiffed on scooping it up, so Caputo snuck in there and was able to get an easy goal near the net. So along with that, just seeing Showtime scoring, I think the first one was in transition and the second one was him doing Callum Crawford things just with a series of fakes. So having that offensive versatility against a defense and goalie like what San Diego has is really good to keep them on their toes.
Yeah, and it helped me, at least watching the game there. I was like, man, I'm so glad to see this from Panther City, especially coming into the game. I'm glad we're fighting hard. But again, San Diego is just that big of a team. They had some great highlights in the second quarter too. Unfortunately, I have to point out they had a great pass, outlet pass from a Wrigley area to Bird.
Yeah,
a crazy goal from him. I was like, oh, okay, well, you kind of gotta let that one go.
Yeah, you can tell he's definitely getting better in that part of his game with those outlets, almost doing his best Christian Del Bianco impression. So, yeah, that was one of those like, well, hats off. And Bird, credit to him, he ran back and was able to get behind the defense for that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another power play goal from them. I mean, we're going into halftime. We're still up 5-4, but I mean, overall, my thoughts were we're keeping it close. We're fighting tough. This is going to be a hard-fought game. I mean, honestly, I was hoping we could, pull away a little bit more. But the fact that we were up at the half, gave me some good feelings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a tall task to build a big lead on a team like San Diego, regardless of whether you're playing at home or in their house. But statistically, things are pretty close after that first half. I think San Diego, of course, they took the majority of the faceoffs with Baptiste. Each team had scored one power play goal. There weren't really a ton of penalties that first half, if I recall, just I think 3 total. And
lots of physicality, no penalties.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and both teams got a bit testy going into the locker room before the half, but nothing led to fisticuffs at that point. So all in all, a pretty good, even game and some great goalie play by both sides.
Yeah, and obviously we've talked about the adjustments, teams like those elite teams make at halftime. I think Panther City, not being considered an elite team, but they are really good at making halftime adjustments. And I mean, coming into the third quarter, you could tell that their offense kept that momentum going. I mean, Knox, not a few minutes in, he gets a great goal, and then shortly after that, a delayed penalty leads to a 6-on-5 advantage. We pulled Damoud and Caputo again. And so at that point, I'm like, heck yeah, we're up 7-4, and great goals by Knox and Caputo.
Yeah, it was great to build that early lead going into the third. And I know that Caputo goal, it was great to see, because normally when you see the ref's hand go up, you're like, oh, okay, well, let's try to get a decent shot off. Lots of times a goal doesn't go in, and the team's going to take advantage of that once a penalty gets called and someone's in the penalty box. But they don't waste any time in saying like, okay, we're basically going to get a freebie here, and they were able to convert. So really good to get that shot off early on.
Yeah, and again, just the offense and everybody kind of clicking at that point. I put in there, Medi again. It's almost like this was the game he decided, hey, I'm gonna try to do what I did last year, but he tries to get another shot off. Unfortunately, it ended up being in a foul against him, and that one I didn't completely understand, but anyway, I mean, it put him at a disadvantage, unfortunately, leading to a power play goal from San Diego, I believe, right at that point.
Yeah, Medi seemed to be getting pretty banged up throughout the game in this. I feel like I saw him without his bucket at least a couple of times. So in any case, like you said, it's good to see that aggression from him, especially given his success when he plays that way.
Right. And I even put down like, this is what I have expected to see from him, throughout the year, coming from last year. And it just seemed like it hadn't been there. But this one, it was just a lot of effort and a lot of pushing it down there. And even if you're not getting goals, taking shots and especially on those breakaways when you have a chance to take a shot, I mean, that's what I want to see from him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So good to see that aggression from him. One thing that also happened, Damoud had a kind of similar to what Origlieri had to Berg early on. Damoud had a great outlet to Matt Hossack at one point, but unfortunately Origlieri was able to block the transition shot attempt. But hey, it's nice to see Damoud pull that out of his hat every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, this was honestly a really good, solid game from Damoud, and we'll talk about him more going into, towards the end of the game. But I was really happy with his shot blocking and everything in this game. But speaking of which, so there are 2 things I want to touch on. First is San Diego tries to get a goal, or tries for a goal, but they decide to challenge it, but they had challenged 2 unsuccessful ones already, so they didn't have any left, and so it led to a power play for Panther City, which I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, I think it's like NFL. You have 2 challenges, but if you get them both correct, you get another one.
I think they might just get used up actually, because I want to say they challenged the Caputo dunk, and that one was successful. So it might just be like you use 2, regardless of whether they're successful or not. You lose them, but it is kind of funny because it's like, well, I mean, you only have 2. That's not too hard to keep track of. But right. I guess in the moment, Merrill just
they're like, yeah, we had 2 per half, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then on top of that, talking about Damoud, the man has like the save of the year so far. He blocked it was so great. He blocked a shot, and then he got it shifted him over to the left, and then the ball ended up on his right side, and a San Diego player, I forget who it was, tries to shoot, and he reaches back with his stick, catches it with his net before it goes in, and I'm just like, okay, David, tonight's your night for sure.
Yeah, you might as well call it a behind the back save. Like, he had his head turned, so he was able to tell. But it was just great awareness on his part, especially right before that, making a block or a body save on the ball too. So just like 2 great saves in a row for him, and he was really in his groove at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it was impressive, and he was definitely playing on top of his game that night. But unfortunately, towards the end of the third, goals by Berg and Stotts. I mean, it made it 7-6, which again, we're still up, but it just seems, San Diego is starting that comeback.
Yeah, and one thing that really hurt us in that third quarter, at the point where we were up 7-4, there was a 5-minute major called on Brett Mitchell for illegal cross-checking. I think it was when he leveled Dane Doby at some point. Whether he meant to kind of come up with his forearm to knock off Doby's helmet and kind of rough him up a little, that's kind of debatable, but the refs saw it as pretty unnecessary, which unfortunately led to 2 of their goals to help cut the deficit to just 1 goal for San Diego.
Yeah, and so going into the fourth, again, I was feeling still pretty good, but at the same time, kind of worried about, can we keep our momentum going the full 60 minutes? And so the fourth starts. Again, San Diego just coming out with these crazy goals. So they had the ball. They're deep inside, close to the net. And Doby, I mean, it's like he had the ball and he looked like he was just running past the front of the goalie. And like, it was hard to catch the first time, but he just like slips it behind his back right past Damude into the goal. And I was like, how do you defend that?
Yeah, that was definitely a magic act on his part. You could see Damude react because he moved his glove, but by that point, the ball had already stuck past him. And it's just like, yeah, hats off to Dane Doby. He's one of the great players in NLL history. I think either that goal or one he had later on moved him into, what was it, like 5th or 6th place all time on goals scored. Yeah, I mean, he's even above Showtime. That's how long he's been playing, and 2, that's how good he's been. So
right.
So
no, it was, again, it was a goal by San Diego that you could just kind of have to say, okay, well, we kind of have to take that one because it was amazing. But talking about Crawford, though, he got a chance to answer back, put us back up 8-7, and I felt like our defense was still doing a pretty good job of not letting them get away with too much. Unfortunately, that led to probably the biggest mistake I've ever seen Damude have. I mean, we've seen him make mistakes where he was either on the wrong side of a goal and was, faked out really good, or maybe too far out from the goal and somebody snuck one past him. But this one, it was just weird. He like stopped the ball and he put his stick over it, his net over it. And then instead of like, how he like pulls it back and then puts it back into his thing. Well, it's almost like he did it too fast, and it went right behind him into the goal. I don't know. I didn't see the broadcast. I don't know what they said about it, but
so from what I saw, he did try to cover it up, but either before he could kind of collect it or get a good hold on it, Curtis Jackson stuck his stick in there, got it in his net, and then shot it before Damude or the rest of the defense could react. So it probably wasn't the best decision by Damude. It was a heads up play by Curtis Jackson, very much something that you'd see like Phil Caputo or Gauthier do on Lucy's. But yeah, you could tell Damude was upset with himself after that. It's like kind of like, oh, I should have just let my teammates get it and stayed back in the net, or been more aggressive, making sure that I had control of it so Jackson couldn't get to it. But I mean, live and learn, and unfortunately that did tie the game up 8-8.
I do have a quick question, and maybe you know or maybe you don't know, but in lacrosse, are goalies able to, like in hockey, whenever they block a shot, they're able to like fall on it?
Mm-hmm.
Are lacrosse players not able to like fall on the ball or cover it up with their hand if it's underneath the net?
I think they are. From what I've seen, yeah, because Damian's fallen on plenty of balls.
Because
I don't know
that's, if he was worried about San Diego getting, I guess I just don't understand why he didn't just be like, okay, well, if they're fighting after it, I need to make sure I secure it, so I need to go down there and get it. Huh?
I figure the thought process is the less time it takes to recover and get up, the quicker that the offense or fast break even can kind of get in motion. So I imagine that's probably the mindset of most of the goalies in the league, just so play doesn't have to stop and you don't give the defense a chance to reset. So I see what him and what I've seen most of the goalies in the league try to do. If you're going to fall on the lacrosse ball, it's more likely to happen closer to the net. So yeah, again, it just was a play that didn't go our way, unfortunately.
Just something I thought about when that happened. But, so yeah, that did tie us up 8-8. And then Stotts, I mean, I hate to say it, but he is that man for San Diego. I mean, he gets a great goal, puts them up 9-8. That's their first, that's their first lead of the game. So to keep them in check, to not take a lead up until the last, 4 or 5 minutes of the fourth, I thought was really good on our half. It just sucks that it came so much later in the game. Mm-hmm. But goal by him, but then Sheridan gets a goal back, ties us 9-9, and at that point I'm like, okay, well, do we have enough time to pull this out, or are we going to overtime?
Yeah, let's see. There were around 3 minutes left at that point.
Yeah.
So that was very much okay, it's like a brand new game at that point. It's essentially 0-0, and whoever goes first wins it. But yeah, they were just like they were the entire game. There were great goalie saves on both sides, good aggressive defense by both teams as well. I do think San Diego's offense seemed a bit more cohesive in the second half than it was in the first, which worked to their advantage.
Well, and you can say without a doubt they are a 60-minute team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they are a team that can perform just as good in the first quarter as they can in the fourth. And that's something I think Panther City has struggled with all year, is just finding consistency. I mean, like, they find it every once in a while, depending on the game. But a lot of times we'll have quarters like we had, not too long ago, where we have shooting droughts and nothing happens offensively. Or, the team is just kind of confused on defense and we let stuff get past us. And so, yeah, I think San Diego definitely was hitting a stride in their second half, and that's what led them to kind of, cut that deficit to the point where they could take the lead and then keep us tied at the end. But yeah, another overtime game, the third one in a row, or not third one in a row, but third one in the last month, I think. But yeah, I was just like, okay, let's get this one. I mean, hey, overtime, we can have a chance. Unfortunately, like I just pointed out, Stotts is that man. He like, we got a couple of chances right off the bat to try to get a goal, but there was definitely a nervous energy in the room, because anytime San Diego had the ball, it didn't last very long, but I was just like, we can't let them score. But unfortunately, you can't keep good teams down like that. And so they get a goal in overtime, ends up winning the game 10-9 against us.
Mm-hmm. And even that game-winning goal, like, Stotts did a great job spinning towards the net to set himself up easy. The fact that Dobie was able to get that pass to him, like, it was a great pick and roll. It was a great play, but the positioning of it was in such a way. It was almost like an NFL game where, like, only Peyton Manning could make that play to that receiver. It was like only Dane Dobie would have been able to figure out, have the wherewithal and the positioning and angle to get Stotts that ball. So they did mention on the telecast that there are times where it seems like Stotts has Damian's number, and I don't think that was the case throughout this game, but early on, Stotts showed why he's one of the great young players in this league.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and he just, I mean, he's one of those players that shows up pretty much every game for them. But well, unfortunately, that led to a loss, and we'll talk about our thoughts about this game towards the end here. But we are wanting to hit on everything, and a game review wouldn't be complete without, of course, Mr. Andrew's stats of the game. Mr. Andrew, what stats do you have for this game?
First off, wow, there were so many shots in this game. San Diego shot it 69 times. Panther City shot it 55. And the fact that the score was so comparatively low, given the number of shot attempts, really shows how good the defense and the goalie play was in this. We alluded to it earlier. Trevor Baptiste was absolutely dominant on faceoffs. He went 21 of 24, so basically he won 7 out of every 8. I know Goodwin took the majority of the faceoffs. I think Poss took one, Patton might have taken a few, but even if we had Ronan Puce, heck, even had we had Burton in there, Tyler Burton, I don't know that it would have made much of a difference. Baptiste is just certainly one of the top 2 or 3 best face-off specialists in the league. San Diego did end up with one more power play goal despite less opportunities. They went 3 of 4, and we only went 2 of 6, which kind of goes to show, even though they had more penalty minutes, Mitchell's 5-minute major that was called on him for knocking Dobie's bucket off was huge, since that led to 2 of those 3 power play goals on San Diego's side. Again, the defenses were physical on both sides. San Diego had 11 caused turnovers, 7 blocks. Panther City at 7 and 5. Another interesting thing, kind of tied to the shot attempts, is that there were very low percentages from pretty much all the stars. Donville went 0 for 11. He didn't score a single goal. Crawford went 3 of 17. Will Malcolm 1 of 7, which that might even be the highest percentage out of his. Wes Berg, the hero of the last win of theirs, he went 2 for 15. Toby, who is great and draws so much attention, he went 1 for 14. And then Stotts, the hero of this game, he only went 3 for 17. And that's not to say that shooting percentages mean a ton in box lacrosse, but again, that just kind of shows how much defensive pressure there was and how both sides kind of forced the other team into tough shots. And that kind of leads ultimately to the elite play of both goalies. Origlieri had a great game. He saved 46 out of 55 for almost 84% on his save percentage. Damude, even though it was a loss, was even better. I mean, he faced 69 shots and he was able to save 59 of them for just a shade under 86%. So absolutely phenomenal. It just sucks that it had to come in a loss.
Right. I mean, we talked about him throughout the game. I mean, Damude just has some great blocks, has some great saves, and like you said, it just kind of sucks that it comes with a loss, but a great individual play from him. Well, of course, that's Mr. Andrews' stats of the game. Kind of leads us into our Cool Cats play of the game. There was 2. I'll say this: there was 2 plays for me, and maybe it's the same 2 plays you got, but
very possible.
But the first one is, of course, that first half, Crawford trying to pass to Caputo or Donville, bouncing off of them straight to Malcolm, and Malcolm's like, okay, well, I'm gonna shoot it. It just the concentration and the way he took advantage of the situation, Malcolm did, that could have led to just a messy turnover, but instead he saw where the ball was going, bounced off, was able to catch it himself, and I'd be like, okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and take a shot, and it was a great shot. So I mean, for me, that's the first one, and then I mean, we can't go through this game without talking about Damude. That turnaround block or catch with his stick. I mean, that's something that's going to be highlighted. Probably like whenever they show the end of the year highlights, that's going to be like top goalie play right there. I think that should be honestly that should have been on the top 5 plays of the week for the NLL, but it wasn't, unfortunately. But no, I thought that was a great save by him. It reminded me of, like, what was it, last year? I think he had another great save where he jumped across and blocked
like
it.
Dove in front.
Yeah,
I remember that.
A little bit different, but, same result where he was able to just kind of put it out there and make an amazing save. What about for you?
So my first one is actually not Will Malcolm's score, but one that was off of a Will Malcolm shot attempt where the San Diego defender looked like he had he was going to get the Lucy, but then Caputo kind of snuck in there last minute to steal it and then got a shot on Origlieri right in front of his net. So that was probably my favorite offensive play of the game. And then you already brought it up, the Damude stick save with his back to the shot. I think the NLL did highlight it at some point and posted on their Facebook or social media page. But yeah, I absolutely agree. That should be one of the top 5 plays of the week. So just excellent heads-up play by Caputo, and then Damude with the great recovery after making another save for that great stick save.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was just an amazing play. So it's hard to pass up when you're talking about the top plays of the game. Well, that's, of course, like I said, our cool cap plays of the game. Brings us to our big cap players of the game. There's one that I think deserves it. Again, I think we just talked about him. I will say the other one that comes to mind is just, I want to give it to Caputo, but I also want to give it to Medi for at least giving the effort this game. And I know that's like a cheap way to give it to him, but I think seeing kind of a little bit of the old Medi play this game was very encouraging. But I will have to say, Caputo, I mean, just his ability to always be where it needs to be. And even though he wasn't, he didn't make a ton of goals this game, I think he made goals that counted. He made the goals that just kept us ahead and kept us in the game the whole time. And he always is, in my mind, a top performer. So he's going to be my big cap player of the game. What about for yourself?
Caputo and Medi were actually 2 of my honorable mentions. Obviously, offense was a bit hard to come by this game, certainly throughout it. I mean, we finished with single digits in 4 quarters and an overtime period. And Caputo, his stats didn't necessarily leap off the page, or he didn't lead the team in points or anything, but his presence in order just opening other guys up, being able to get offensive rebounds. The ball doesn't necessarily always find him during every offensive cycle, but he certainly takes advantage when he does. I mean, I when I was listing out the Stars shooting percentages, notice that I didn't mention Phil Caputo, because he actually went 2 for 5 for 40% on his shots on goal, which is pretty good in limited opportunities. On top of that, he also had 4 Lucies, 2 assists. So it was nice to see him do well. And then Medi, he really didn't have any negative stats, and he got pretty banged up too, which I guess is par for the course for him, since he's such a frustrating defender for offenses to play against. He had 2 caused turnovers, 2 blocks, 7 Lucies, and then those 2 shots on goal. Again, they didn't go in, but it was just good to see that aggression for him, and that they might have been a sign of things to come later in the week. However, my big cap player of the game has to go to Nick Damude. Him losing this one reminded me of, I think it was Edinger, the Dallas Stars goalie. He had a playoff game.
Edinger.
Yeah, he had a game, a playoff game a while back where he played great, but it just so happened that I think it might have been overtime or extra periods too, where eventually the other team was able to score on him. That was essentially how I felt about Damude this game. Just that you're not going to see a lot of games where a goalie manages to save north of 85% of their shots, especially on as many as 69 shots on goal by the opposing team. So hats off to him. Just want him to know, yay, it's a loss, and it's easy to give credit or put blame on goalies since they're the last line in defense, but I think he did really well. Basically everything but the win for him.
Yeah, I mean, Damude has honestly, up to this game, has been pretty solid. I mean, he usually has 1 or 2 bad games a year. He had one earlier, but this game was definitely one where he was just solid start to finish. Unfortunately, we just couldn't get enough points in the end to kind of get the win out of it. Of course, that's our big cap players of the game. I'll let you kick us off. I mean, what are your final thoughts after watching this game?
Obviously would have wanted a win. I think that we might have figured out a formula on how to not necessarily always be, but certainly contend with San Diego. you don't really want it to be a shootout against them because they've got so much firepower on that side with Berg, Dixon, Dobie, Stotts, and that guy now that Origlieri's throwing long range bombs and outlets. So it's better to kind of muck it up and play more physical with them. I think we might have tried that last year, but didn't quite have the personnel nor the size on both sides of the ball. I think this season, unfortunately, Brendan Mitchell had the 5-minute major called against him, but his size and physicality, good win in transition and when he gets defensive plays out there. And then Knox and Sheridan, those were really key acquisitions just for their like size and power and their aggressive style of play alone. Because I think it makes a difference when you have guys that play physical but also can take some physical play and aggression themselves and absorb hits and not get pushed around as much. So disappointed that it was a loss, but I think there were plenty of positives to take from the way they played. Hopefully the offense, I'm confident that it'll come around against San Diego one of these days. Again, they've got an elite goalie in Origlieri. They've got a top-notch defense. They're not near the top of the standings for no reason. So disappointed, but plenty of good things to take away.
Yeah, I'm kind of like you. I mean, I think there was a lot of good positives in this game. I think Panther City fought hard throughout. It does seem like we could have pulled off a win. I mean, it seems like we had that in our grasp. We just unfortunately had a few mistakes, like you said, that 5-minute major, the goal from Daymud on his mistake, But at the end of the day, this was a game I kind of expected a loss from. But it was good and encouraging to see us really close with them. San Diego, man, I hate to say it, they're still a really solid team. They might be having a rougher year than the last few years, but I mean they're still one of those top teams you have to deal with. And so just to be able to hang with them and force overtime, where we actually had a chance to win, I think says a lot to where Panther City wants to go. But man, I feel like it was the one we let get away. Like we've had a few of those games so far this year. The Las Vegas overtime game, that was one we let kind of slip through our fingers. I feel like this one was another one against a really good team that we just kind of let a few mistakes pretty much decide the game for us. And so I hate to see it, but it was a loss nonetheless. But that was our Friday night game. Now I will say you weren't there for the after game interviews. We did get to talk to two of them that game. So the first one we got to talk to head coach Tracy Kuleski. Here's what he had to say after the game.
Hard fought game. It was. I would say the third close game you've had in a row. And what do you tell your team after 3 games in a row like that coming out tonight?
What did we learn? What did we learn? And there's 2 things that I take from a loss like this. You play a veteran group over there. Some Hall of Famers arguably in that lineup. A couple of them, multiple guys there. What are the lessons? The lessons to me is, Austin Stats wanted the ball on his stick. He was willing it to happen and wanting to make things turn the tide. I've loved that resiliency over the last couple of years. And tonight we were resilient. Again, they go up and we find a way to get back. But the message is, the minute details and the little things that we say we got to clean up. And we talked about it at halftime. We talked about it at a TV timeout. The little things become huge things. And then there's a couple of little things that ended up goals in the back of the net. So what do we learn from it? We learned that you got to take it upon yourself to make things happen. And it goes across the board. It doesn't matter if you're Jason Knox, a rookie in the lineup, Colin Crawford, who's played in the league for 20 years. I want to be the difference maker. And similarly on the defensive side, I'm going to be the difference maker, and it's going to be me that's going to make me a reason why we win. it's not an immediate reason why we lose. And again, I thought tonight we were sometimes just, wishing things would happen and wishing somebody else was going to step up. But again, that's a learning thing for a young team. So you take the lessons from a veteran group like them, and hopefully it makes you better.
A quick turnaround, obviously, a game on Sunday. What do you tell your team going forward over the next 2 days?
Well, we're back to 500. It's on to the next. Obviously, we got to learn. We got to what are the lessons that we learned tonight? How do we apply them? But we got a hungry team coming in with Rochester. A team that's below 500. A team that, quite frankly, is a very good lacrosse team. Well coached and they're well rested, so they're going to come in chomping on the bit. Again, for me, it's different. If we were one, it's like, what are the lessons that we learned? How do we apply it? And I'm just not sure some of the minute details are sticking with some of these guys, and that's an unfortunate thing because again, it's not a matter of wanting to go compete and the guys want to win, and I think to a man we're competing at times very well. But it's checking the boxes as far as what's asked of you and making sure that you stick with it. Or you make mistakes 100%. I'm making the same mistakes over and over. Sometimes come back to my head, and again, my message is, hey, clean it up. Get another opportunity. We've talked about opportunity the last couple of weeks in this group. Individual opportunity, meaning you have an opportunity to prove your worth. Not only with our club, but within the National Lacrosse League, that you belong here and you can be an impactful player. And then we talked about opportunity as a club, about when we turn that page and say, yeah, we are a contender, we are for real, right? And we got to put two of those together so that we can turn the page and become a top 5 team, top 4 team in this league. Which again, we're close, but let's be learning we're average at best.
Gotcha. Finally, we've seen a kind of rotation of players on face-off. Can you give any stats on Tyler Burton or just kind of...
Burt's is getting close. Burt's is getting real close. And Push has done an exceptional job thus far as well. He was on the... We win a couple with the lineup, and we stuck with it. So we stuck with our lineup the last 3. Obviously, in back-to-back games, we're gonna rotate some guys in on both sides, but I'm sure. We were just talking out of the locker room, but... we're excited to have Bertie back, and we're excited to, again, our best part about us is getting them back.
Obviously, he's trying to pull whatever positives he can. I did like his answer right at the bat. It was, what did we learn? What have we learned so far this year? What can we learn from this and move on? And so I think he was very much telling the team, continue to learn and see what other teams are doing and grow your own game. But had just that mentality of a quick turnaround, having another game in 2 days, take that knowledge, learn from it, and move on from it. So it was really good to hear that from him. And then, of course, I had to ask about, the face-offs and get the kind of situation there. They did say, they said Pierce should be back the next game, which he was on Sunday, but they're still missing some pieces there.
Yeah, definitely. Still don't know how Burton's going to do, when he's going to show up. I know he's hopefully getting close, like Coach said. The San Diego game isn't the best indicator of what we're lacking on in the face-off dock, because Trevor Baptiste does that to a ton of teams or a ton of opponents. But yeah, it would be nice to have some consistency in the middle.
Yeah, so it was good to hear from him after that. And then, of course, we actually did get to talk to Matt Hosick afterwards. Here's what he had to say.
A close game tonight. Even in the loss, you guys were resilient and kind of fought back. And what's some positives you can take from this game?
Certainly a lot of good things. I think that we did. I felt like we played with them and we competed with them. But we talked about the simple things and cleaning up some of the easy things. They're easy, but they're not necessarily easy things to do at the time, right? These are things that are like, I'm talking about like hard work type things, right? Being ready at 4:30 on defense and box out and stuff like that, and making sure we're producing shots properly on O and working to get open and getting off and those sort of things. Like there's those little cleanups, and we certainly gotta find a way to not continue to just make those same mistakes. We're so good with how we're playing right now. We're playing really well, and that again, it's a little bit just to get you, and it's a bounce here or there too, right? I think we got some favorable bounces last time against Georgia. You see how that it just changes the momentum of the game, and sometimes you got to try and create your own bounces, and it comes down to that hard work first.
I asked Coach TK about it, but quick turnaround, obviously, game on a Sunday. Right? What do you and what do you tell your team and what do you tell yourselves to kind of get ready for that game on a quick turnaround?
I mean, for me, it's honestly kind of nice to have a game. You don't have to stew in kind of the feeling of the loss all week, and it allows you to kind of turn the page quicker. So I think that's good for our guys, and we'll get to practice tomorrow and change our focus strictly to Rochester, and we'll leave this one behind us. I'm certainly proud of what our effort and stuff is. It's not that what we want, but yeah, I love the way this group plays and are competing and stuff, and we're almost there.
I think the thing to come from him, especially being a captain of the team, is just, rallying the team, being like, hey, this was a hard-fought game. This was a loss, but we have another game coming up. We need to continue the good things that we're doing and move past that sooner rather than later. And so I think he had a really good mentality, even with the loss coming out that Friday night.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is nice to hear from him, again, just as a leader of the team and also a defenseman, because those are the more unheralded guys on any team, because people like to see points and scoring and whatnot. So it's nice that he was able to talk with us a little afterwards. Yeah.
I mean, I think that was the first time I've heard him talk as far as like from an interview standpoint. So really good to hear from him. Well, like I said, we had a quick turnaround. That was Friday night. That leads us into Sunday afternoon, another Sunday afternoon game, which I think kind of bodes better for the area. But I mean, I don't know. It just seems like Thursday night and Saturday night games don't really work well for us. It seems like Friday night it's hit or miss, but Sunday afternoon games it seems like we get decent amount of people coming out. Plus, I think it works better for everybody's schedule. Going into this game, it was a Marvel theme day, which, the entire NLL had a Marvel theme game this year. Of course, being Panther City, ours was, the Black Panther, Wakanda jerseys, custom jerseys. I tried to bid on it, man, but the closer it got, the higher the price got. I think the cheapest one ended up going for like $415. And
dang, wow.
And I was just like, okay, well, that's out of my price range. So
yeah,
but they were good jerseys.
Yeah, I think Maggie Hale on the replay that I watched, I think she said they were able to raise over $11,000 for Bridge Lacrosse. So great that it went to a great cause and charity. And yeah, they do look really pretty sick, and it just goes hand in hand, Panther and Panther. Uh-huh. The Nighthawks, meanwhile, had Guardians of the Galaxy, which, they were nice jerseys as well, but maybe a bit more irrelevant or unrelated.
Yeah. There's nothing. I mean, I feel like they could have found something that maybe goes with the theme a little bit more. But anyway, we got there. We actually were handing out some free comics and stuff like that. So that was really cool to see. Mm-hmm. Another pregame thing I put down, no Sheridan this game.
Yeah. It looked like Puce was back in the lineup along with Ty Thompson, who I think he had only played in one, maybe two other games this year. And Sheridan, along with Brandon Goodwin, were out. So it kind of begs the question, like, obviously, Coach TK wants to get guys minutes and playing time where he can, just to give the team different looks and see what lineups work the best. And obviously with the game on Friday, you've probably got some guys that are pretty tired. The entire team's probably pretty tired after that close loss.
I did kind of, after thinking about it for a while, I hope me asking about the face-off situation did lead to him being like, okay, well, let's get Push back out there, because I was like, you guys aren't doing bad. I wondered about the consistency.
I think it was more that there were some offensive plays against San Diego where Sheridan rushed things a bit too much and didn't utilize the shot clock. Like, that's one thing that they actually mentioned on the telecast, when Sheridan would kind of go for the highlight reel play as opposed to let the offense set up and get something more steady going. So not that, that might be irrelevant as well, but in any case, he, for better or for worse, he sat out the game.
Yeah. Well, which I'm going to say this now. I kind of wish he didn't, because I think we needed a physical presence out on this game. But man, this game did not start off well. I mean, it started off badly. I mean, a quick goal by Rochester put them up 1-0, and then within the next few minutes, 2 more goals. So within the first 5 minutes of the game, it was 3-0, and I was just like, well, our defense isn't stopping anything, and we've lost every face-off so far.
Yeah, face-offs are rough, even with Pusey back out there. Something seemed off with Damies in that, just like he was. It's almost like it was like a true back-to-back. Like, they had just finished the game against San Diego half an hour earlier,
right?
And we're going right back into things, because things definitely seemed off. The entire defense, Damies. Yeah, it was a weird start.
Yeah, and talking about David, I told you, he usually has 2 games a year where he just plays really, really bad. And this one, he started off playing really bad, unfortunately. And I wouldn't say he wasn't playing horrible, but I don't know if he just wasn't able to see the ball all the time or wasn't able to adjust. But, after a TV timeout, another goal by Rochester, they're up 4-0. They actually pulled Damoud, put McLeod out there, and then literally 30 seconds later, they put Damoud back in. And I don't know if that was an equipment adjustment or what the reason was, but it was just kind of weird. But it kind of goes to the theme of, hey, maybe we need to take him a break for a while.
Yeah, and McLeod, to his credit, he's ready whenever his number is called. He stopped the first shot attempt once he got out there. I think at some point he had 2 good saves in a row all in the same possession, kind of like Damien last game, just where he caught one with his body, then kind of shrugged one off with his shoulder. So it's, you don't like to see your starting goalie have those kind of struggles early on. And so whether he needed to get some equipment adjusted, or whether the coaching staff kind of gave him a pep talk and tried to get his head more into things, who knows? But at that point, it seemed like, I don't know if it was the right decision, but I can absolutely understand why they did it, especially coming off that Friday game.
Well, and they were quick goals. I think that was the other problem they were having with it, is if there's a spread out over the first quarter, maybe Damon stays in there, but it was just so fast. But the other thing that happened in the first, lots of penalties, but from both teams. I mean, I think we were almost more chippy than they were in that first quarter. Led to a lot of shorthanded situations. I mean, it actually led to a good 4-on-3 advantage with us, and which led to a Donville goal. But lots of fighting, lots of chippiness. I don't know. It seems like we were kind of coming out unsettled this game.
Yeah, I was gonna say, watching the replay, whereas the game against San Diego, that physicality seemed really kind of in check, and aside from the 5-minute major, it seemed
right.
really kind of focused, and I guess you could say clean. This one, it seemed very much. There were times when both teams are a bit Keystone Cops, if you will. It seemed a bit messy, and I'm sure that was also part of Rochester's game plan. It's okay, let's run them off the court, get them tired early, and that way, if they're a step slow, then the best they can do is hold or have illegal cross checks and whatnot. So credit to Rochester's game plan. I think they fully exploited the quick turnaround time.
Yeah, and It did lead to, obviously, Malcolm got a power play goal out of all the penalties going on, but Rochester took advantage. So at the end of the first, I mean, it was down early against Rochester. We were down 6-2 at that point, and just something I didn't expect to see in this game.
I know I expected a closer game than the San Diego one, honestly, and. So yeah, when I actually got to the arena a little bit late, so I had ESPN Plus, just the audio playing in my car on the way in, and just hearing that score, I was like, this can't be right.
Right.
Like, I know I've seen the standings and everything, but then that just goes to show, like, I'm eating crow for underestimating Rochester.
Well, and Coach TK pointed this out after the game on Friday. Rochester, don't let the record fool you. They're a tough team. They're a hard fighting team. It's just, their record doesn't reflect it, and so they had to be careful, and they were not careful. They were, like I said, unsettled. They were just kind of playing sloppy, lots of mistakes, lots of penalties. But going into the second, again, Rochester, they get a quick goal, 30 seconds in, put them up 7-2. At that point, I wrote down in my notes. I was like, man, this game seems to be getting away from us really fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's certainly not what you want to see. Obviously, Rochester's not as an elite team, and their defense isn't necessarily as good. But then, you just have to factor in this was our second game of the weekend, and you don't want to use that as an excuse. However, you want guys to go out there and compete, and not kind of be like, all right, y'all aren't feeling it today. We just played a tough one. Let's throw in the towel. And it didn't seem like guys had that mentality, aside from Will Malcolm.
Yeah, and Malcolm, I mean, he got a great goal to answer back, so kind of keeping us in the fight. But I just put down, I mean, Rochester was playing, it seemed like they were playing faster and harder than us, and then on top of that, just penalties. I mean, I feel like, gosh, Medeiros had a penalty. I feel like a couple other, I can't remember the list of penalties we had in the first half alone, but it just seemed like every Panther City player out there had a penalty on something. And, when you have that many penalties, Rochester is eventually going to take advantage, or they're going to find ways to score, or just, make us have more penalties. I don't know. The game just did not bode well for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just looking at the penalty summary from that second quarter, it's just like one was less than 12 minutes, with less than 3 minutes into the quarter, and then two more from Messenger and Puce less than a minute after that. And so it's just like, just kind of shooting ourselves in the foot in terms of being able to get any kind of continuity on both offense and defense. Because I mean, yeah, Danude had a pretty rough game, and McLeod did all right, but their job is so much harder when there's one or two less guys in front of them trying to stop the ball from getting to the net. So it's just, things kind of just snowballed the entire game. It's like, and whenever there was a little bit of momentum, it would get quelled pretty quickly.
Yeah, we had a hard time just closing the gap at all. I mean, like I said, the defense was struggling. Second quarter just was kind of a bad time for us. But one highlight from the second quarter, your boy finally,
yes.
he said,
yes.
finally gets the monkey off of his back. Medeiros finally gets a score. And I'm like, where has this been all year?
Man, I'm just so happy, and I know he was pumped about that. After the game, I'm pretty sure his parents or some relatives of him were there, so it was kind of nice to see him chatting to them. Maybe that kind of helped inspire him a little bit. But yeah, it's just, it honestly reminded me of last season, and it wasn't in close or like a diving goal or anything like that. He got it from pretty far out, so it was great accuracy on his part too. Unfortunately, it had to come in a game where it kind of got evened out by all the penalties that were called on him and the team as a whole.
I was about to say, we'll talk. I have him in my notes later about how it seemed like he had a ton of penalties against him, but It's good to see him finally get a goal.
Yes.
And then Panther City actually scored again after that. So there's a lot of scoring in the second quarter from Rochester, unfortunately, and a few goals from us. So it didn't seem like it was too tough of a hill for us to get out of. But I mean, at halftime it was 10-6, which was a lot more scoring than I expected.
But we certainly would have expected a high-powered offense like San Diego to put more on the board and whatnot. But God, Rochester, they just something about, I think the combination of it being the second game and then them probably being hungry, and all things considered, the separation in the standings outside of the top 3 or 4 teams, everyone else is still obviously has a chance for the playoffs with all the season that's left. So going into this third quarter, Rochester, they had 9 more shots on goal than us, 38-29. They were absolutely killing us on faceoffs. I think Joe Post was taking most of them for him. He went 15 of 18 from the dot in the first half. Power play goals, they had more than us. They also had more power play opportunities just because of all the penalties. And then they were beating us on loosies really bad too, 51-35. And I think it was alluded to later on, but that discrepancy in loosies was basically a great representative of what the difference is when you have kind of a fresh, ready-to-play squad and one that was coming off a loss as tough as Panther City did on Friday.
I don't know if you have it up on there. Do you know how many penalties we had in the first half?
Let's see.
Because I feel like
1, 2.
I feel like we had a lot more. I think we had more penalties in this one half than we had probably a lot of one games.
Yeah. More than even the San Diego game.
Right.
There were 3 in the first quarter and 4 in the second, so 7 just in the first half. And even if those are just minor, God, that's 14 minutes in a 30-minute quarter of playing man down.
That's a whole quarter right there that you just gave up to them. So, yeah, I mean, it was great that we had a little bit more back and forth in the second quarter, but we definitely needed to make some adjustments. The goalies, they were, at that point, they were just switching out. I mean, it was Daymud, and then it was McLeod, and then Daymud for a little bit, and then McLeod for a little bit. So going into the third, McLeod started the third, and he was actually playing decent. Actually got a few shots. I think we talked about it before. He seems to have adjusted his game a little bit, where he's not out in front of the goal as much. I will say, though, he did start to tend to fall back on that as the game went on, which kind of, worked as a disadvantage against him. But for the beginning of the third, he played really solid. Actually led to Donville getting a score, 10-7. We're only down by 3 at that point, so I was like, hey, we have a chance.
Yeah, it was good to see that. And then Foley actually had to leave the game for a little bit. He came back with a taped ankle, so one of our best defenders, even though the game wasn't going too well for us at that point, you did not want to lose a defender like Patrick Foley when you're trying to make a comeback. So yeah, good to see Donville cut that lead back to 3. That
unfortunately,
unfortunately, that seemed to be the we just couldn't get over the hump of that three goal deficit.
Yeah, well, I mean, Rochester after that, I mean, they just, I don't know what their offense was doing that we couldn't stop, but they went on a 3-0 run. I mean, pushing the game to 13-7. At that point, we're down by 6, and I'm just like, what are we doing that's letting them score pretty much at will?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I know we haven't played Rochester a lot in our history, but when they beat us last year, they were missing Connor Fields, who is one of the best, I think one of the best PLL field players there is. And they mentioned on the telecast that he's got great accuracy on his shots coming from outside. And so I'm sure we scouted for that, but not having the actual experience playing against him since he sat out last season's game, this was probably kind of an eye-opening experience for a lot of the guys on what he could do, not just for getting his own shots, but just passing the ball around, making sure all the rest of the Nighthawks were involved. And man, it showed throughout the game.
Well, and I think, again, talking about the game from Friday to Sunday, I think the defense put up such a good fight Friday that unless they kept that same that same play style and same play, starting off this game, it was hard to keep that momentum going. I think it just finally did start to kind of wear and tear on them. Donville, he got another goal. I mean, cut it 13-8. Down by 5 doesn't sound like it's not a lot in lacrosse, but I did write down by that point it did kind of seem like the team kind of looked defeated. I mean, they weren't. I don't know. I don't want to say as aggressive as usual, but we were definitely missing shots from our bigger players. I mean, at that point, Malcolm was in there, but he had only had a few shots. Crawford was being shut down through three quarters. I mean, it was hard to get offensive production from everybody, and it was hard to get the defense to consistently shut them down.
Yeah. The defense definitely. I can absolutely understand why after that physicality against San Diego, they couldn't get honestly close to that same level without having kind of more ticky-tack mistakes with all the penalties that were being called. And then you mentioned it at the beginning with Sheridan being out. He's a guy that he's not going to have an amazing game every game, but he makes his presence felt when he's out there. So it was tough to see him not playing a game where I think he could have contributed pretty well.
Yeah, I think going forward, especially once they get Burton back and everything, they're going to have to find a way to get Sheridan in that lineup. I think his physical presence is something they need to have out there. But yeah, into the third, it was 13-8. Fourth, I mean, it started off decent for us. Knox gets a quick score, 13-9. And I'm like, okay, again, you're only down by 4, but another penalty by Medeiros. I mean, how many did he end up having in this game?
He had 3, and as I recall, that last one in the fourth quarter was so obvious.
Yeah,
I remember
right in front of the ref. Yeah.
I remember Telio like he kind of gave the guy like a quick little jab and hope that he was going to be able to get away with it, and kind of. So it's that stuff happens to players in every single game. I mean, if you're gonna do it, you gotta be subtle
right
about it, I guess. And that's you don't want a guy to like play any less aggressive. But it's like, as Coach TK has said before, you want to channel it in the right direction and in the right manner, and not just kind of take cheap shots when the ball's downfield and hoping to sneak one in that way. So it's just. I'm glad he scored a goal.
Yeah,
I'll say that much.
Yeah, because everything else was just penalties for him. But that led to a Rochester power play goal, 14-9. I'll let you kind of run down because you had some really good notes about just kind of what we were trying to do at that point of the game, trying to get back into it. Malcolm got a goal. It was 14-10. But we were trying some things and they just weren't really working out in our favor.
Yeah, every time it was kind of like, what is it? 2 steps forward, 1 step back. In our case, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, because it seemed like for every goal that we got, Rochester would get not only match it, but get another one of their own. Like after Malcolm was able to get a putback goal, Rochester quickly answered with a goal of their own, and then they got their own transition goal by McConvey, and that pushed the lead back to 6. At that point, there were 10 minutes left, and 6 isn't insurmountable, but the flavor of the game at that point did not really bode well, because to turn on the Jets in the second game of a 2-game weekend, just it was definitely an uphill battle. Malcolm was able to score again. I think Malcolm basically was a one-man show
in the fourth quarter for sure.
Yeah, Caputo was able to eventually get some goals in late. And that, I think the second one by Caputo was the one glimpse in that quarter where it seemed like, okay, we might have a chance. There's over 4 minutes left. The deficit is 4. Hey, this might be like the Georgia game where we were down by 3 and managed to win by 1. And those goals were all with like less than 4 minutes left.
Right.
However, after Caputo did that, Knight was able to silence the crowd and push it back to 5 with 3 minutes left. And at that point, I mean, the only goal after that, Malcolm got one more in garbage time with 13 seconds to make it a little bit more respectable. It was, I think we had pulled Damute/McLeod from the net at that point. So it's like, if there is any silver lining, it's like, well, at least Rochester didn't get to 20.
Right. Well, and something I think you pointed out in your notes too is we let the offensive players out there more to play defense.
Oh yeah,
that's
right.
And then we started hanging players back, which I'd never seen that strategy before.
Yeah, they left Donnie back. Almost what you call cherry picking in basketball. Just like, okay, right when we get a stop, hopefully, right when McLeod or the defense gets a stop, just get it to Donnie and hope that there's not a defender set with them. I think Rochester kind of figured it out, and they had a guy hanging with him. And, the gamble didn't really work because Rochester scored again.
I was about to say, yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, you've got one guy that's ready on offense when the ball gets to him, but that also means you've got one less defender. And, you can play solid defense in front four, but at that point, you'd kind of, it's what law of diminishing returns, I guess.
Right. Well, you pointed him out. Malcolm was one bright spot in that fourth quarter. He ended up with, 6 points, getting a sock trick for the night. Or actually had more points, but maybe 6 goals. Yeah.
This was his first career sock trick. He had 7. So it was nice to see him get that. And, he had hit it even before he scored that one that was kind of meaningless near the end of the game.
Yeah. But he, I mean, the one bright spot was him definitely trying to keep the team in it, trying to be that person out there to keep the team going. But unfortunately, it just was too big of a lead and too little time left. We ended up losing 19-15. We'll talk about our thoughts on this game. There's definitely some interesting stats I know you want to touch on, but for our second Mr. Andrews stats of the game, what do you have for our game against Rochester?
Well, kind of a continuation of those first half stats I provided. Rochester won Lucy's quite handily. There were 90 Lucy's that they picked up compared to Panther City's 73. And that also kind of is indicative of how much sloppy play there was in this game, because those are extremely high loose ball numbers. Rochester was able to kind of convert that into 11 more shots on goal. They peppered our goalies and defense with 73 shots compared to our 62. Both those tallies are high, but you also don't want to be the team that puts up less shots. And this was probably the biggest killer, certainly throughout after the first quarter, where they just kind of ran off that run. We had 22 penalty minutes, and Rochester only had 11. Those 22 penalty minutes led to 4 power play goals for Rochester, and the fact that they had 8 opportunities to go man up is not good. And I know at least one of those opportunities was when we had 2 guys in the sin bin, so it was really 3-on-5. Kind of a deja vu with Trevor Baptiste. Rochester's Joe Post killed us on the face-offs. That's even with Pucci being back in the lineup, 26-38. Ronan Pucci is a very solid face-off player. He's probably going to have to learn some tricks from the veterans in the league, like the Tyler Burns or the Baptiste or the Post. So it's an area that, again, they won't necessarily make or break box lacrosse game, but they can certainly lead to extra possessions, which always helps. And Crawford, you mentioned it already. He was shut out. He had 10 shots on goal. None of them went in. He was able to get 5 assists, but if Crawford's not able to find the back of the net, then on most nights that means Panther City's probably in for a long one. On the flip side, Connor Fields absolutely killed it for Rochester. He only had 3 goals, but he had 11 assists for 14 points total, either nearing or tying the total that Showtime had against Las Vegas earlier.
Yeah, I think he had 14 as well, right?
Yeah, and so, 11 assists, Rochester had 19 points, so he basically accounted for at least a little over half their offense, and he was just able to find and set up other guys all game. On our side, we mentioned it already. Will Malcolm was the one bright spot offensively. He actually shot over 50% on his shots on goal. He made 7 out of 12, which is nice to see. He also had 4 assists on top of that and 5 loose balls. So it was nice to see one guy that kind of still had it going.
Yeah, and you know, it was good to see at least one of our players kind of showing up in this game. That's of course our Mr. Andrews stats of the game. Leads us into our cool cat plays of the game. I'll let you go first, mainly because there's only one that I can think of. But I mean, do you have any cool cat plays for this game, even though it was kind of a mess from our end?
The one that I can think of for Panther City was Will Malcolm had a spin move in the first half where the defender kind of was riding him near his shoulder, and he was able to spin off of the other side of him. The defender kind of went stumbling because he lost his balance. And then after that, Malcolm just drove into the front of the goal and was able to get a diving goal in on Riley Hutchcraft, I think it was. So great play by him. I think at that point we were still down either 6-3 or 9-5, but just seeing that was kind of helps pump things up. It's like, okay, yeah, let's get more of that going. So in a pretty rough game overall, his that move and that goal was definitely the highlight.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I kind of forgot about that one, to be honest. The only play of the game that I could think of was just Medeiros finally getting the goal.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'll give props to him. You know, it wasn't a flashy play. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I've never seen that before kind of play, but it was a play that I think he needed to make. Now,
yes,
the other penalty minutes that went along with it, not so much. But for me, that would be a good highlight. So for me, Medeiros, great play of the game for him. That's, of course, our cool cat plays of the game. Big cat players of the game, look, I'll be honest. There's not a whole lot of people to talk about in this game. But I think we've talked about him a lot. If you are going to take one bright spot at this, and Coach TK, we'll listen to him here in a bit. He kind of touched on it because I want to try to leave with some positives. But, Will Malcolm, Coach TK said after Friday's game, he challenged his players. He's like, look at Stotts. He is the man for San Diego. He is that man. And who's going to be that for this team? Who's going to be the one that continuously steps up for us? And sure, a lot of his goals came in the fourth, but he was there working hard throughout. And that's of course Will Malcolm. I think he definitely tried to do his best this game, and sure, it came at a losing effort, but seeing him be consistent and consistently pushing and consistently getting those goals and those attempts, great game from him. Just wish the rest of the team was there, but that's of course my big cat player of the game. Who do you have for yourself?
I'd agree with that. Will Malcolm was my player. He kept us in it. He was the one guy that looked like he wasn't as affected by the short turnaround time. Honorable mention, Cam McLeod did pretty well in relief minutes. He ended up playing most of the game. Dame, we mentioned he had a rough night. He only saved 18 of 26 before he was getting yanked back and forth for a while. McLeod saved 36 of 47 in relief, which, that's pretty solid for your backup goalie and whatnot. But Will Malcolm was definitely the difference maker in terms of keeping the score respectable.
Yeah. And of course, that's our big cat players of the game. I mean, it's hard to find light in games like this. And I think he was definitely the one bright spot. Final thoughts for me, it's easy. Panther City needed this win. They needed a win, especially after that loss. I think we talked about last week. Whether they won Friday night or they lost Friday night, they needed this win against Rochester. And they came out flat, and it resulted in Rochester taking advantage of them. And, Rochester was not the better team. I mean, they have good players, but they are not the better team. I think Panther City is the better team. in the overall, look of things, but we made Rochester look like, title contenders. It's like, it was like Toronto coming into town and or Buffalo or whatever, and just kind of shutting us down. We made them look like, hey, these are ones that are gearing up for the playoffs, not ones that are below 500 and are still below us in the standings, by the way. But it was just after that game on Friday, especially that overtime game, even though it was a loss, it was just very disappointing to see the team that came out on that Sunday. I guess that would be my final thoughts. What about for you?
Yeah, I'd agree. It was definitely disappointing, and it was, a worst case scenario for the team as far as the wins and losses go. Because you think, okay, if you win against San Diego, then you might have kind of a letdown game against Rochester because you underestimate them or something. If you lose to San Diego, then okay, you better beat Rochester because you need a win this week. You got to stay above 500. And the fact that they weren't able to do either is just really, really disappointing. I think Coach TK and the entire team, regardless of how they played, was disappointed by that outcome as well. The one thing that they mentioned on the telecast, Rochester, they probably played a bit looser. Not that they're viewing this as kind of a rebuilding year or anything like that, but it seemed like they're playing without any pressure, and that's a credit to their coaching staff being able to keep the guys loose like that. And I think it helped that they were playing against a more tired Panther City squad. It just, I don't know. It was, I still remember as I was driving to the arena, hearing the score. I was stuck in a lot of traffic, and part of me was like, man, this is the way we're playing today. Should I just turn around and watch it from home? Obviously, I didn't do that. I wanted to see some live lacrosse. But yeah, overall, like, we lost every single quarter except for that fourth one, and the only reason we didn't lose that fourth one was because of Malcolm's goal with 13 seconds left when the outcome was already out of reach for us. So yeah, very disappointing. The one good thing in terms of the standings go, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're still technically in sixth, even with the losing record. I think because our point differential and head-to-head might be better than the other players. Actually, I guess maybe they don't calculate it on the site like this. I think Calgary might technically be above us, but it would have been a lot better to come out this weekend with a record of, let's see, we would have been 7-4 instead of 5-6 had we won both games.
Yeah, well, even 6-6 would have been, or no, it would have been, if we went 1-1, what would it have been like? Would that be? Let's
see, we were 5-4, so it would have been
6-5.
6-5, yeah. So we would have still been above 500.
Yeah. I'll leave with this, and this is a question I just thought of. Do you feel like if the game would have went in our favor Friday night, that the Sunday game would have been different?
That's a good question. Part of me says yes, because it wouldn't have been as deflating a feeling, because you basically did almost everything right against a team like San Diego, except get the win.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it just, right from the get-go, I don't think that we would have played as, I guess, dejectedly, maybe, or maybe with like slumped shoulders. We would have probably stood a little straighter, held our heads high a bit more, as cliche as that sounds, had we won against San Diego.
I don't know. I feel like, the attitude would have been different if we won Friday. And maybe Rochester does come out the same way and get a head start on us, but I think it would have been at least a closer game, even if we did lose. But I don't know. It's just crazy how something small or not small, but it's just something like that can change the entire weekend. With those two games so close to each other. Of course, I mentioned it earlier. We only got to talk to one person after this game, and that was Coach TK. Here's what he had to say after the game.
It's a tough game today. At least he seemed to be an inch per average in terms of a pretty big scrub team shot on goal as well. He tended to throw the guys getting tired from the quick turnaround or just Rochester taking advantage of that or just a game of unlucky bounces.
All of the above. I thought, they obviously came out very hot. And for whatever reason, we were flat. And we knew the importance of the first 5 minutes, and obviously it didn't go our way, and then we just were real from that time on. And notice when I just said to the guys in the locker room, I was like, it wasn't a lack of effort, I don't think. And yeah, we were certainly tired, but then what do the emphasis? What do we have to put the most emphasis on? And that's doing the little things very well, and that's again a lot of it's just basic lacrosse, and it stems back to fundamental lacrosse. Picking up OCs with 2 hands, being in good position, reacting in real time, and it becomes again, these are all little things that again we just were very poor on. We didn't execute them. It was almost non-existent to a point at most of the game. And at times were critical times in the game when you getting back into a bit of a flow, we just mental breakdowns.
Got it. And along the same line, then 11 penalties on Panther City led to 4 power play goals for Rochester. What can y'all do on your end to not let the game be chippy or let it be dictated by calls?
Just again, some of the penalties that we got so far away from the play, and again, I know guys are carrying that's emotion's good and passion's good. But again, where are we directing it? And then again, the bad penalties behind the play that have zero relevance to what's going on, and it's to me it was uncharacteristic. But seemingly maybe not so uncharacteristic. It just seemed to be the same guys doing it. So I had to take accountability for that, and maybe get a little bit harder on those guys again, because it's, as of right now they're it doesn't seem to be stopping. Because he has repeat offenders, which is unfortunate.
Makes sense.
You got 2 road games coming up. What are some good things you can take away from this weekend, and then B, that you can kind of say, hey, that's something we did good going into these next 2 weeks?
Our motion was really good on the bench, and again, one of the things we talked about was that, communication sometimes has to, stem and get, be that the number one thing that pushes you to get better, right? And you got to communicate, and guys are active on the bench, they're communicating. We have a locker room in there that guys care about one another, right? Again, we just got to find a way to direct it a little bit better and understand put a higher emphasis on those little things and make sure that that's the thing that's pushing us. Right, but again, there were so many positives tonight. I love our locker room. I know that in there, those guys feel like they let themselves down, but they let their teammates down, and that's what I've always loved about this group is we're a resilient group, but they care about each other, and they're prideful and want to earn each other's respect, which ultimately is what we place for us, and something that I'm proud of with our guys always. So. We'll rebound. We hit the reset button here, and nothing changes. I think that's the thing. And there, guys look around the locker room, and again, Friday night, you're a goal. You went overtime against arguably one of the best teams in the league, and then the other state tonight, but we'll rebound.
And then finally, another positive was, of course, Will Knockman tonight. Can you talk a little bit about him and just kind of him progressing through the year?
Well, that was the message after San Diego. Like, if you want to see the guy, then go be the guy. And Deland, he put that weight on his shoulders today, and he went out and showed it, and he was not only shooting the ball real well, but then awesome defense, and really just led by example, which is what we want him to do. And again, they having job from tonight, but that was a challenge that was set forth, after the game on Friday, was go be the guy, and I think he did that tonight, which again I love his response.
I will say you had definitely the more serious negative questions to focus on for next week, but he had some good answers. Obviously, looking forward to the next games.
Yeah. I don't mind playing bad cop to your good cop in those situations. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely stuff that they do need to clean up on, especially the penalties, which really hurt us. And it's funny. I wanted to ask one more question, since even before Coach TK brought up the little things and the fundamentals, just like scooping up loosies, securing the ball, that kind of thing. I wanted to ask him if the plan for that stuff ever changes game to game, or is it just a given that guys that are playing at the highest level of box lacrosse know that they need to take care of business, just doing things that they were taught when they first started playing the game. I didn't want to go there because I thought that Coach TK had enough kind of harder hitting questions, but that was one thing I was kind of curious on, like if they ever if they're gonna run drills for that before the game against Philly or that sort of thing, just to kind of shore things up on that end.
Well, yeah, and that's why I was, you hit those questions, and I was like, okay, let's try to twist this a little bit and look at some positives. I was trying to say, hey, what are some positive things you can take going into next week? Obviously, Will Malcolm be in a positive spot. I think, his big takeaway is that the team, even though we lost by a lot, was still fighting. And so he wants that fighting attitude, that fighting spirit to keep going week to week. He doesn't want the team to feel deflated or to the point where they feel like a game is useless or something like that. So I think that's at least something positive they can go into these because the next two games are away. So hopefully that's something they can kind of grow on. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, maybe some time away from Dickey's Arena might do them some good, just kind of to kind of calibrate and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, of course, thank you, to Panther City for allowing us to do the after game interviews like that. Like I pointed out, their next two games are away. First one coming up this weekend against Philadelphia, a Wings team that we had an amazing game last year. We talked about in our top moments for 2023. But they're always a tough team to go against, especially when we go to Philadelphia. So it'll be interesting to see what adjustments we make. But what do you see kind of going into this game against Philadelphia this week?
I wouldn't be surprised if they got off to an early lead, kind of similar to last season. They were riding high off of beating Calgary after coming back from 2-3 goal deficits against them. So they've certainly got some momentum playing at Wells Fargo Center in front of their fans. Obviously they don't have Trevor Baptiste anymore, but they still have a lot of great players, and Ben McIntosh, Joe Arisa-Terrets, and a bunch of the other guys. And so, yeah, we haven't seen them yet this season, so I'm curious to see how things are going to shake out. But last season gave us one of our best games of the year, and one of the best highlights with I think it was Will Malcolm when he juked Isaiah Davis-Allen for the game-winning or the go-ahead goal. So, after Rochester, to me, anything's got to be an improvement.
Yeah, and it's another afternoon game. So Philadelphia coming in with a 4-6 record. They're obviously trying to fight for that middle ground as well. But where are they on the standings? That's what I want to know.
They're a little bit below us. They've got same amount of losses, but one less win than us. Their differential does imply that they're having more trouble putting points on the board than we are. So,
well, I would say so. It says points or goals per game. We're at 12. They're at 11. So we do have a slight advantage, but it seems like both of us have. They're at a negative 13 goal differential.
Yeah,
that's the only problem.
Yeah, and that could mean that they had one big blowout at some point or something, but still, I don't think these past couple of years they haven't really been in contention for the playoffs, not as much as we have.
Yeah, and it's another Sunday afternoon game, which I find is interesting. I think the NLL is starting to, now that the football season's done and everything, they're starting to kind of stretch those Sunday afternoon games a little bit more. So, I mean, hopefully that gives us enough time to rest, enough time to kind of get things in order. But yeah, I think this is definitely a game that we need to come out in a certain way, just to kind of get our heads on straight. But we didn't do it last week. I do want to bring it out again this week. We did it a few weeks before, a few times. A little segment called "Show Me Something," and I would, I'll ask you, but I'll go ahead and go first. As far as show me something, I say, show me something, Panther City defense. You guys played great against San Diego, and then you come out against Rochester and lay an egg, pretty much. You kind of like were flat-footed. You weren't defending very well. David had another, up and down game. McLeod played decent, but he doesn't play solid enough for us to, get back in the game the way we wanted to. But man, like this has got to be a game, especially against Philadelphia, where the defense needs to show up and show out. You guys have been playing. Honestly, I think they played great the last 4 weeks. Like leading up to that game against Rochester, against San Diego, Colorado, Georgia, I think the defense was honestly one of the big highlights of those games. But against Rochester, they were non-existent. And so for me, show me something, Panther City defense. Do you have anything for you?
I'm going to go with my usual guy. We mentioned he scored a goal, but he did have 3 penalties that kind of helped offset it, with the other team taking advantage. I'd like to see my man Medeiros kind of put it all together and have a great defensive game. He's usually playing solid, pestering defense, and get on the scoreboard as well. Not necessarily with a goal, though. That would be awesome. Just, kind of applying pressure in transition, either scoring himself or sending guys up. I'd love to see more of that, because it was great to see glimpses of that this weekend, even if they were both some losses.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think again, you mentioned it before. I think the transition game is a key part. And we have yet to find a steady, multiple games of transition game playing the way they should. Expectations. What are your expectations for us against Philadelphia?
I think we're going to use this game to right the ship. It's a team that's been struggling some. I mean, they did win against Calgary, so in theory they could be trying to kind of hit their midseason groove. But I think we got to stomp that out early on if possible. I'd love to see us get an early lead on the road. That'd be amazing. I'm expecting us to kind of, right the ship and win 13-10.
I think you and I both have the same idea. I think this is another must-win game for us. I think it's a game where, like you said, I think being away from home for a few weeks is probably a good thing, especially for some of those players just to kind of get their heads straight. But no, a game against Philadelphia, even though, again, it's another team that has less wins than us, is a very hard-fought team. And I think we need to be able to show why we are probably the better team in this situation. Like I said, defense needs to show up. Offense needs to show up too. I mean, besides a few games, they really haven't have a whole lot of offensive explosion, which I don't expect to see during this game. I mean, both the teams are pretty even as far as points per game. So I'm going to go on that and say the defense does show up a little bit more, but our offense still struggles. So I say we do win. I think you said 13-10. I'm going to say 12-9. So same goal differential, but it's still kind of low scoring in the big picture of things. But I mean, hopefully they get a win.
Yeah, that's a big key. It looks like so. Before they beat Calgary actually beat Philadelphia the prior week. So if they were to get on any streak, it seems like this would only be the second win for them. So hopefully we can kind of keep things inconsistent on Philly's side, prevent them from getting any momentum.
Well, and not only that, but we have to make sure that we keep wins coming in on our side. I mean, We have this game against Philadelphia, and then after that, it's like slaughterhouse 3 games in a row. Halifax, we're going to Halifax. We're back home against Buffalo, and then away against San Diego. So we kind of need this win.
Yeah, I mean, God, those are all upper echelon teams for sure. I know Buffalo's kind of not on cruise control right now, but hey, they are the defending champs. So
I mean, yeah, anytime you go against the defending champ, it's gonna be like, oh yeah, I don't know. Halifax always plays hard, and they're always in playoff contention. Buffalo's always up there. San Diego, we have Philadelphia again after that at home, so hopefully that's at least another win. And then Albany and Calgary to close the year. I don't know. This is going to be a hard stretch of the year for us.
Yeah, it'll be a rough one, but it'll definitely test our mettle and show whether we're up to the challenge or not. Yeah.
Well, of course, we look forward to this weekend's game. Hopefully we can get things going, keep things more consistent. Let's hope they can put these 2 games behind them. Look forward to finishing the season strong. Obviously, want to get that playoff spot as we wind down the end of this season. But as always, we thank everybody for listening. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X/Twitter, and of course, check out our videos on YouTube. Be sure to follow us. We actually have a link tree now, so I'll be sure to highlight that. Whenever I get a chance, it has a link to all of our social medias and our episodes on there. So be sure to check that out when you can. But once again, I'm Nicholas.
I'm Andy.
All right, and we'll see y'all next time.
Sweet. Cheers, y'all.
Money.